The Macabre World podcast is brought to you by Darker Art Studio, home of real human bone jewelry. Stock and custom pieces are available, so visit us on the web at www.darkerartstudio.com and show them your darker art side. Macabre World, a podcast from Darker Art Studio, where we explore the dark, strange, and unusual from this world and beyond. Hello and welcome to the Macabre World podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Digati, and with me today from Paranormal, Caught on Camera, and many other shows that you've seen and probably some that you haven't, and we'll talk about those, is Dan Sturges. Dan, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, hey, Rocky, thanks for having me on. This is great. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Same. Paranormal Caught on Camera is getting very popular. In fact, most of the paranormal shows is booming on lots of the cable channels.
Sure.
How did that come about? I mean, you've been an investigator for a lot longer than the TV shows, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I started doing this way before early 2000 when the show started coming out, I believe 2003, 2004. So I'd been doing this. I didn't even know I was doing paranormal investigations. I was just going out and doing my thing and reading books. But, I live in New York City, and it gets around October, for some reason, we get a lot of popularity, and we become very popular in the city and do a lot of interviews and articles, and I've been on a few of the shows, a lot of the morning shows here in New York. So somebody came across my name from Paranormal Caught on Camera, one of the producers, and shot me an email and asked if I'd be interested in chatting with them. And now we just started filming the sixth season, so it's been a pretty cool ride.
I'm really glad that's still. I have watched the show. And I think a lot of the listeners have as well.
That's great.
And there is one clip that sticks in my mind. I mean, I got to tell you, from the Philippines. And it always seems to zero in because they have some amazing cultural values, views, and rituals with death.
Correct.
But it's an adorable little boy, and he's doing some kind of selfie thing.
Oh my God, I can't believe you're saying this. Yep. Yeah.
And I guess he kind of leans over, and in camera, the ultimate afterlife photobomb, if you will, is what his mother says was his grandmother.
Right.
And I got to tell you, a lot of people, well, that could have been makeup. There was structural issues. And if folks, all you need to, I think, look is Philippines ghost grandmother cell phone selfie. You'll find it. It's out there all over the place.
It's easy to find.
And I do not think what I saw on that video would be able to be done with makeup or filters.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And if you guys listening, you want to see it, it's easier to find on Facebook. That was originally a Facebook post.
Really?
And if you go back and find this woman's profile, I wish I knew her name, but it's easily to find if you do a search. You'll see her raw footage, which is even more impressive than the footage that you see on Paranormal Caught on Camera. Paranormal Caught on Camera, for airing, it's twisted. They angle it in a different way so that it's easily viewable. But the raw footage is even creepier. And I'm so psyched that you brought that up. We were talking at Paranormal Caught on Camera. We did a YouTube video for something, and it had everybody on the show, and they asked each person, what was your favorite clip? What was your favorite clip? And that's the clip that I brought up. That's the clip. That's the one that sticks with me the most. And I have watched that video an embarrassingly amount of times, just because I dig it for a lot of reasons. It's a great story, and it's my favorite video from the whole show.
It really is something. What I'm going to try to do for you listeners is I'm going to try to grab that Facebook link and put it in the podcast description so you can click and see it yourself without having to search. So there will be a link to that in the description of the podcast.
Great.
And the other video that sticks in my mind, which always looked particularly strange, is there is a video that a lot of folks have seen of a toddler balanced on the very edge of a crib like standing and reaching up. Now, I am no expert on toddlers, and to be fair, I've never breastfed anyone under 30, but it's a and it's that
we
kind
have
of
so
show,
much in common, Rocky. I can't believe you just said that.
So, I don't have kids, but I do know from working with pediatric calls when I was an EMT, etc. That's not a balance that kids that age can do. It's, because toddlers are basically like, they're sort of miniature drunk adults.
Right.
They don't really have great balance. They kind of bump into stuff.
Right.
They tell you they love you all the time. It's basically like a drunk adult in a tiny body. So I'm always amazed by that clip because the child is really balanced consistently and precariously on the edge of the crib. And what do you think of that one?
Right. Yeah. And you're right. Toddlers and little babies like that, they can't even balance their head, which is, probably the heaviest part of their body. So their head would be what they would go in the direction of their big giant head. If you watch that video again, you look on the floor in front of the crib, and there's like a Makita cordless drill that you would use to, maybe drill an eye hook or whatever for some string, possibly. Again, when I watch that video, I can only be honest. And, it's what is odd is, what's paranormal about that? This baby's balancing on his or her crib. Okay, it's got nothing to do with spirits or ghosts or I'm not a demon. I don't necessarily buy into the whole demon thing. But when you see, if you look around the room, I love to look at what's in a room. Even when I'm on an investigation, if somebody calls me into an investigation, one of the first things I like to do is look at if they have a book collection or a video collection. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to see Ghost Hunters season 1 through 1,000 or whatever they're up to now. You'll see, people are buffs or they're fans, and they want to believe their place is haunted. But in this case, that cordless drill really
that's wrong with you.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why that cordless drill was in that baby's room, and suddenly that baby's able to balance itself on the edge of a crib.
Have you been to IKEA, Dan? I know why it was in there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's it was just a red flag for me. I don't know. I
see what you're saying, though. You get very unusual item to see in there, and that doesn't seem like a coincidence.
Yeah, and it's an unusual item just to see
again.
Yeah, it's an unusual item to see in a baby's room. A baby that's in a crib. It's like, it'd be weird if there was a chainsaw in there. So it's
also strange. Okay.
Yeah, totally strange.
Why is that kid in there with a chainsaw? Oh, well, Mr. and Mrs. Leatherface. But it's there must get amazing influx of videos. Like I can imagine the ones that you see on the show is only a fraction of what's submitted.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in on that end, but when I speak with the producers,
there must be high volume now.
Yeah. And it's all viewer submission. In the first season, I think they were going out and looking for videos and contacting people on YouTube and whatnot, any other kind of platforms, and contacting the owners of the video and saying, hey, we got this show and we'd love to use your video. And then the show got very popular. It's amazing who watches this show. I get emails from New Zealand. I get emails from Iceland, from Germany. It's from everywhere. One of my best friends was down in Miami, and his wife was getting her nails done, and she called him up on the cell phone, and she goes, I think I just saw Dan on TV. That had a TV up on getting a mani-pedi, and there's my giant head. But so for the second season and second and third season, they got a lot of videos sent in.
Yeah.
And because people all wanted to get their video on TV. And they do the interviews like, through Skype, and they get their face on TV. And I think they get a couple of bucks as well. So they get so many videos, Bigfoot and UFOs and Loch Ness Monster videos. Yeah, they have tons of them. And it's great for us, for the investigators, because we get to see so many videos that we normally wouldn't get a chance to see. And I've reached out to some of these people, and some of the groups doing investigations reached out to them and saying, hey, I think you're doing a great job. And holy cow, if you ever want a second hand, I'll come down or I'll talk to the people and say, you don't need to be afraid, because when it's on TV, it needs to be scary.
Right.
And I'll call them up and I go, listen, in my opinion, you got nothing to be afraid of, enjoy it. It's a perk of your house and have fun with it. So
they're perfect unless they pay rent. That would be the only thing that would be better.
Right. Totally.
But, talking about, the submissions and it has gone from like, we were the weirdos at cocktail parties, mm-hmm. and now it's very mainstream.
Oh, everybody's got a story.
Yeah, everybody's got a story. Everybody has their favorite shows. Everybody has the guy they love to hate. Everybody's got, this, that, and the other. And everybody's got an opinion. And like you said, everybody's got a story now. One of the things is, I think the internet, the media, and all of these, you get how on the internet they have the armchair detectives that solve crimes because mm-hmm. they're obsessed with one case. It's getting to be like that with paranormal, is it not?
Yeah.
Like you're getting people that would never have thought of buying a REM pod or any of those types of things, and they're going to the websites and going to the ghost hunting stores, mm-hmm. and they're getting these equipment, and they're doing their own investigations.
Right.
So I would imagine the influx of material, because now it's in everybody's game.
Yeah, everybody, you've got a lot of, I consider myself an amateur paranormal investigator. I am, I'm not a parapsychologist. I don't claim to be. I've taken classes. I know people that have taken classes for 3 months on an online parapsychology college or some ridiculous thing, and they call themselves, or they'll get a PhD, and they'll
right.
call themselves Dr. So-and-so. I'm a doctor of parapsychology, and, don't know what RSPK means. And I'm like, well, if you don't know what recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or they'll think poltergeist activity is actually a ghost somewhere. Yeah, so it's been good and bad as an investigator who was doing this way before the shows, right. Where more people, the public knows now that there are people out there that do this. So they will reach out, and hopefully they'll find the right person to come to their house or their place of business and walk them through what might be happening, what probably isn't happening.
Right.
And but also now I did an investigation for somebody in Jersey, in Washington, New Jersey, and he said, yeah, we had a group in here, and they said our home is full of demons, and we need to do this, we need to do that. And I was like, they didn't do you any favors. These people were freaked out because professionals came in and told them about demons and that they were going to, be careful because they're going to be possessed. So it freaked these people out, and as it would have freaked anybody out.
Well, I think there's an ethics, to it. Like, what makes for a good paranormal investigator? If you were going to, let's say, okay, you're going to be looking for people to work with. What do you think makes for a good paranormal investigator, or great?
A paranormal investigator that doesn't call himself an expert paranormal investigator. I want somebody with a level head, and I go on investigations. I like to bring my friends, and because it's a different energy for somebody who hasn't been on that, and I think it's good for spirit also to deal with somebody who's excited, and it's just a different energy. But a level-headed approach, a sense of humor, when you're walking around, a factory for 5-6 hours, you don't want somebody who's there who's going to be a drag,
right,
that would suck.
Somebody who's relatively good company. Okay.
You need good company, and somebody who is open-minded, not just that you might run into things that you can't explain, but also on the other end, that not everything that you can explain at the moment is paranormal.
Right.
If you're in a house and you hear a creak, people will go, oh my God, that must be a ghost. Or like, well, it's a creak. A creek doesn't necessarily mean it's a spirit or the place is haunted, so somebody's that is
not going to see aardvarks around every corner.
Exactly. And skeptically optimistic on an investigation, I think would be cool. And you know what? If it's a female and she's cute, she seems to like me, that's a plus.
Well, there you go, ladies. It's out there.
And somebody who might pick up a tab at a bar sometime. You know, it's you want somebody cool. You just want somebody who's
bourbon. Dan says he wants bourbon.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, when somebody comes in with a ton of gear, that's a red flag for me. When I first started, I had everything you could imagine. You know, that everything that I saw on one of the shows, because I didn't know. You know, and I'm like, you know what? I want to try all this stuff out. So I can always tell how long somebody's been doing investigations by how much gear they have. I go out now and I bring my knapsack, and that's all you need.
And I'm an amateur as well. I have a wee case that's just like a briefcase size thing, and
that's it.
I did build one of those ghost box portal
spirit box or ghost.
Yeah, well, the spirit box I bought in and of itself. It's an SB7 kind of thing. And it's basically an AM/FM radio that scans. Mm-hmm. And having been in the public safety arena, scanners are not strange to me. And I can hear the way it's working. I'm like, oh, that's the same way, you know, most of your scanners work. Because everybody used to have one in their house if they had nosy neighbors. That was like the Mrs. Kravitz accessory everyone had in their house.
Exactly.
But I added, and there are videos on YouTube to do this rather than, and there are some beautiful machines that are very slick looking, but I didn't want to play this slick looking price. So what I did was I found an old Bluetooth speaker. I'm a musician. We've talked about this offline. I'm a musician. So I had a reverb pedal and a noise gate. And wired it together because that's what the video. So I kind of had all this stuff sort of hanging around, and it actually does a great job of cleaning it up. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. It's a ridiculous amount of tinkering going on, but you know, it's. I think we can all agree it's not an exact science, but it was. I'll have to send you some EVP for that. But
yeah, I'd love to see it. My thing with that stuff, with Spirit Box or Frank's Box or the Obelisk. Remember when the Obelisk came out? It was like the coolest thing.
Demon.
Yeah. For me, those things they're essentially random event generators, and you know, with an Obelisk and the Spirit Boxes, they have words pre-programmed in them.
Sure.
And the spirit somehow is able to manipulate the EMF or the electronics inside to get out a word, or each word has its own frequency. Right. You know, I was told once, I go, well, then has the spirit, do they have like the instruction guide? Do they have the manual to know what frequency equals what word? Because, you know, you can't control the words that are on there. And what if they're all just scary words? Somebody, you know, that says noose, bullet, this. So when you're asking a question.
Homicide. Yeah, I love that voice.
When you ask a question, you know, how did you die in this room? And it says noose or homicide, everybody goes crazy.
Sure.
You know, what if it was loaded with like butterfly ice cream? You know, what would you do? So I have no control over what those words are. So I don't put a lot of stock in them. I don't use them because is it just spitting out a word? And the necrophonic apps people have on their phones, same idea.
Yeah.
Same idea.
They need to change the voice. They need to change it to something like either really, really silly or something really, really sinister. Like, you know, like, I don't know. I think you could get sort of like Christopher Walken or something like that. You're talking to my guy all wrong. Right. When he's got that, you know, homicide. Yeah. Or Marge System. Noose.
That'd be even better. You know, I've never seen a Simpsons episode.
I have seen a few, and I found out after I had a really bad cold that I can actually imitate Marge Simpson. Homer, I'm worried about Bart. Lisa, get away. Only because I was a big Julie Kavner fan. She was Rhoda's sister.
Wow. Yeah. She's
back in the day.
Yeah.
So speaking of gear, I've done a little homework, only a little. Okay. But flatline digital recorders, I gotta say, absolutely brilliant. Please talk about that.
Flatline digital recorder. Yeah, thank you for that. And I will pat myself. I'm patting myself on the back right now.
As well you should.
Because, you know, when we talk about a spirit, a ghost, survival of the consciousness after bodily death, okay? That's who you're communicating with. You're communicating with a person who doesn't have the tools anymore to make sound waves that we can hear that's going to enter our ear and tickle our little cochlea and go into our brain. And we go through our card catalog in our brain of what that word means in an instant. They don't have the tools to do that. They don't have the tools to hear us. They don't have that cochlea. They don't have ears. They don't have a tongue to manipulate sound waves or a voice box. So what are we hearing? So you shouldn't need a microphone to capture EVP if a spirit or consciousness is imprinting what they want us to hear onto the recording media, which has been happening since the invention of recording media. Magnetic tape. People were catching EVP by mistake. That's how EVP happened. There was, I'm going to brain fart and not remember the guy's name, but he was in a cemetery recording birds and he got his father's voice. So you shouldn't need a microphone. So what I have done, I've taken a few voice recorders and I used to just put in a headphone jack that's not connected to anything into the microphone jack of a voice recorder.
And that jams it. Yeah.
Yeah, it disengages the internal microphone. And, basically what you need microphones for is to hear the questions. What did I just ask? Because a spirit is going to answer and you're not going to hear it. So yeah, flatline recorders. And then when you want to do your evaluation, you just pop them in, you put them through your Audacity, which everybody has, or yeah. And, you look for any kind of bumps in the recording. It'll tell you if it picked anything up. And while I haven't gotten any voices yet, after 20 years of doing flatline recording, I have not caught a voice yet, but I have caught noises. And I don't know if that's just an internal thing in the microphone or something bumped the microphone, but I've caught strange noises. And it's always amazing to see when you pull up what you're expecting to just be a flat line, and you see some bumps in the line where you're going, oh my God, there's no microphone connected to that. And something got recorded. So, yeah,
where did that
flatline
come
recorders.
From?
Pardon me?
Where did it come from?
Exactly. And that's what you think, could it be just a malfunction of the camera, some kind of glitch in the camera? In the recorder. So, it's nothing that I can really connect to a haunting yet because I've gotten no information. But yeah, it's cool. It's
that's
cool.
The ultimate control. That's the ultimate control. You're saying, all right, we have no microphone. If this is how it works, then this ought to work. And what do you think of stuff like the Estes method? I mean, it's very dramatic when you see people do it. And for folks who aren't familiar, the Estes method is when someone is blindfolded and has noise canceling headphones on, and someone else, essentially in another room is listening to, or is doing the questions. Basically, it removes the concept of one subject knowing the questions.
Right.
And the answers that they seem to get from, I think they usually have a ghost box or some sort of.
Yeah, I like the Estes method. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that, and there's a lot of things that come into play. Being influenced and wanting to hear something that really you're not like. What do they call when you? What are the guy matrixing?
Right.
So like audio matrixing, thinking hearing what you want to hear. But I love that these people, and it's the Estes method. It's called the Estes because they did it at the hotel where Stephen King did it, which is in Estes Park, Colorado, I think. Yes. So it's called the Estes method.
The Sterling Hotel.
Something. Stanley.
Was it the Stanley Hotel, the Sterling Hotel, the one that was the model for The Shining? Correct.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Correct. But I love that people are coming up with new things to try, and I think that's the most important thing about the Estes method is that people were not just using a voice recorder going, "Can you give me a sign of your presence?" They came up with something else, a sensory deprivation type of idea. Blindfolded, you've got either white noise or like you said, a spirit box playing in your ears, and you're going to just report anything that you hear and see if it corresponds to an answer. I've been doing something similar like that when I work with a medium, where I I'll have numbered envelopes with a question in the envelope that are sealed, and I'll just hand them out to random people on the investigation and say, don't say it out loud, think it. Say, all right, this is envelope number 1. Because, again, you spirits don't have ears.
It's sort of the paranormal version of leading the witness.
Exactly. And so you just want, silence, and then the medium will answer what he feels, the spirit is telling him. So sometimes they match up. I've gotten some pretty, I work with a specific medium named Richard Scholler, and I'll send you a link to him. Yeah. I didn't believe in mediums and psychics. I didn't buy into that until I met him. And we did that with him, and his answers to the questions we didn't say out loud were pretty right on. They were pretty fantastic. Dead on. Yeah.
Very
curious. Was creepy. Yeah.
It's funny the sirens are here in rural New Jersey and not in New York City.
Yeah,
so it's a little amusing.
Yeah, we just have gunshots. You can't really hear them out the window.
Well, we're near Philly. They shoot you in Philly.
Yeah.
But there's so much out there, and I understand, when there's presentations, and not just specifically Paranormal Caught on Camera, but any TV show that's really trying to not only educate but entertain, they're gonna pump up the scare factor a bit. Two things that I always think get a little misrepresented in some of the media, and I'm curious on your thoughts. One is orbs. I mean, to me, that seems like something, for the most part, easily explained. There's all kinds of, unless you have something really spectacular happening. Orbs are everywhere. Yeah. They're like paranormal dust bunnies.
Yeah, dust orbs. It's dust orbs or drop pixels. You didn't get a lot of reports of orbs before digital cameras came out. And, you'll never get an orb on a Polaroid camera. You don't get a lot of orbs on a 35 millimeter camera. You don't get a lot of orbs if you don't have a flash, or if you don't have the lights on. You don't get orbs. So, and if you do get an orb with the lights off,
that could
be something. Yeah. I have seen orbs that you have to call them paranormal. I don't know if they're spirit or something else, but the great Barry Taft, who's a friend, and did the original The Entity case. Which was a poltergeist case.
That movie scared me half to death.
Yeah. But if you read I've read his reports, and I've spoken to Barry about this, and I had a radio show years ago and had him on. So if you look for the SciShow and a Barry Taft, he was on a couple times. But he was getting photographs of orbs on video, on film, where the lights were off. So these were self-illuminating things that would light up the room.
That's curious. Yeah.
And they weren't see-through. They weren't a perfect circle like a drop pixel is on a digital camera.
Right.
They weren't see-through like a dust orb. I've done investigations where people have just lit into me. Investigations. I've done presentations and lectures where people have just lit into me about orbs. Look at this orb on my phone, and I go, you know what? Give me the phone, and I'm going to I'll take a picture right now. And you stomp your foot on the carpet and snap a picture, and you've got a whole bunch of orbs. So it's for the most part, it's dust, and these little or bugs, flying around. So again, you can't.
They seem suspect. I'm not going to say every orb is nothing,
exactly,
or all orbs or something, but it seems like those are so easily explained in most cases.
Yeah. Well, put it this way: I haven't seen an orb that I was impressed with in at least 10 years.
Yeah, that makes
a
sense.
Photo of an orb or a video.
The other thing, shadow people.
Yeah.
I have seen some very interesting footage, both on the show and everything, and some of it is quite curious. And I tend to think I'd want to be a little more into, like, these are obviously people submitting the videos, and I think sometimes that can be very easily manipulated or faked, or it's like I always say, the Bigfoot videos. That's Crazy Eddie. He had a little too much beer and he just put on the costume, and well, not to scare the kids. But I have seen some videos that I really do think they have something there.
Right.
But why does everybody always assume, and I say everybody, maybe perhaps present company excluded, that shadow people are evil? That's an evil spirit. It's a dark evil. It's a shadow. Mm-hmm. My shadow's not, well, my shadow might be a little evil. It's mine, you know. But I mean, there seems to be an assumption that anything that is we don't understand or makes us uncomfortable has to be bad.
Right. We're afraid of things we don't understand.
Right.
And that's why I'm petrified of women. And
I'm scared of algebra.
What's algebra?
Right.
But
exactly.
The shadow people phenomena, it's I've seen lots and lots of videos, and even before the show, have people submitted videos to me to get my opinion, and I have taken what I thought at first was a really great shadow person photograph until I realized that it was an IR shadow person of me. And so somebody behind me had an IR camera, and we're filming video, and I snapped a picture down a hallway and caught the IR shadow of me up against a wall down the hall. And you don't see, you can't tell who it is.
Right.
But after looking at it, and somebody smarter than me going, was there somebody behind you with an infrared light on? And I said, yeah, I believe so. He goes, yeah, it's probably an IR shadow. Yeah. And if you want to make a really cool shadow person video, that's how you do it.
That's wild. I didn't realize that,
Yeah, I mean,
I've only recently been looking at IR because now you can get those little FLIR attachments for your phone and stuff. And those are really quite cool, and also kind of useful if you have an old house like I do and you want to look around the windows to see which ones need weather stripping.
Exactly. I mean, they are what those things are. And FLIR cameras, everybody went nuts. I went out and looking for FLIR cameras. And if anyone wants to buy them, go to your fire departments, local fire departments. They probably have a bunch of old ones laying around that they'll give to you for practically not for a donation, which is what I did. And but they are non-contact infrared thermometers, like the laser ones that everybody had. And basically what they're doing is they're taking the temperature of whatever it's pointed in front of. And when spirit, if you want to talk again about consciousness that has survived bodily death, does that have enough mass to reflect that signal back to the camera for you to get an image? I don't know. So again, something that I was really excited to start using. And then when I thought about it and again, talked to people and got what they thought, like a Lloyd Auerbach or somebody, and they go, well, why? Well, why? And also, now when I talk to groups and I'm somebody with some experience now, and people like myself 30 years ago come to me and go, I'm looking on my FLIR camera. I go, well, you're in a private house, people called you in? Yeah. I go, did they see this spirit through a FLIR camera? Did they have their lights out and using infrared goggles or night vision goggles? No. So why are you using it? That's not the condition that they had their experience in. So why change the condition? If they saw it with their own two eyes, which you don't see a spirit with your eyes, you see it with your mind.
Third eye.
You perceive a spirit. Why are you shutting the lights off and then turning a light on? It doesn't make sense to me. And when that was explained to me with, if a person saw a spirit walking through their living room and they weren't using night vision goggles and they weren't using a forward-looking infrared camera, why are you using one? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit what you should be doing as an investigator, in my opinion.
You mentioned the knapsack, and as your scaled down essentials, what's in Dan's knapsack?
Well, on an investigation,
yes.
I have digital recorders,
Visine, nail clippers,
duct tape, and scissors. I have recorders. I have quite a few natural tri-field EMF meters, which don't measure electromagnetic fields. They measure fluctuations in the magnetic field. And that's what I'm looking for. You have a bunch of different EMF meters. You've got EMF meters that will register alternating current or man-made EMF fields. Anything with a plug that you have plugged in, that's an alternating current. I love the EMF meters that register and they measure DC currents, direct currents. This is not man-made. This is what people give out. If you put an EMF meter next to you, a tri-field natural EMF meter, it's going to register you, and then it's going to flatline itself down to zero. And if you walked in the room, it would register that change in the electromagnetic field. So that's what I like to use. And again, a fluctuation in an electromagnetic field doesn't necessarily mean you have a spirit. It means you have a fluctuation in the electromagnetic field. You're picking up the wake of the boat, not the boat. And I got to give that quote to Lloyd Auerbach. That's how he explained it. That's a great
way to describe it, especially, that's a really good concept.
Yeah. You're standing on the beach and these waves come up. Now, was that a speedboat? Was that a sailboat? Was that a cruise ship? You don't know. You just know that a boat passed by and something created waves. So that's what we're looking for. And then once you, there's so much to do on an investigation that has nothing to do with looking for spirits. You've got to get all the atmospherics down. And you've got to go to the place multiple times. You've got to, there's lots to do, which these shows on TV choose not to show because they have time constraints. They have to make it entertaining.
Well, I liken it to the way, they always used to do cooking shows and a lot of these other shows, is that you're seeing the highlights of like 10, 12 or more hours of investigation. And you're seeing just like the quasi exciting points. And I say quasi because sometimes what some people find exciting, I find it absolutely. And I'm not naming names. I'm not naming shows because it's kind of across the board here and there. Everybody's seen it on one show or another. Right. If you're a paranormal investigator and you are on an investigation and you're manning whatever piece of equipment and something paranormal allegedly happens, if you're there to investigate, why do you scream and run?
Oh, yeah. You're talking about, well, I don't even remember that knucklehead's name, but yeah. It's
been a few knuckleheads, I think, over the over the course.
I understand, getting freaked out and leaving a place. It's never happened to me. I've been to places where I'm like, all right, I got my spidey sensors are going through the roof, and I'm not that guy. And I say, you know what, I got to, as much as I wanted to leave because I was scared of something I didn't understand, I forced myself to sit down. So I understand, and I don't know how much of that on the shows are like, I'm going to get a lot of airtime by doing this, or were they legit freaked out? And if you're legit freaked out, go. And you shouldn't be there. But then, you know what? Don't go on the investigation in the first place.
Right.
And there's a place in the city here, the Merchant's House Museum, which is just haunted like crazy. And we do tours there on Halloween, and I do the midnight tour. Come in, Dan, investigate. I've been investigating the house since 2005. So, come in. Dan's 17 years new in investigation, and he's on this show now. And people have vomited. People have passed out.
That seems inappropriate.
Yeah, but they're just bugged out at the idea of being in a haunted house. And if something happens, they hear something, which could be somebody downstairs shutting a door. Who knows? But it scares them so much, they got to remove themselves. And I'm all for that. I don't try and force anybody to stay. If you're not comfortable and you want to go. I'm not going to force you to stay. But don't. And then I tell them, don't come back to the tour. Don't come back to the tour.
So New York City and is I think a mythical place in a way, because I used to go there a lot first when I was a kid because we had relatives that lived out in Queens. So I'm originally from Rhode Island, but I would, that was an easy commute. So we'd spend time out there. And it was when you're little and you see that kind of crazy, that's wild, especially if you're from a little hobbit town in New England. So, and it's such a storied and legendary place because it's got so much history, so many people, and everything that could ever possibly happen has happened in New York City. Yet I don't hear as much about New York City as I do about places like, say, New Orleans, Savannah,
Mhm.
or some of the other more haunted places,
Right.
where it seems like New York City should be a hotbed.
Right. Yeah, you would think. And, people in New York, everybody's got a story, and everybody's lived in a haunted apartment, and everybody has all the theaters. I moved to New York and went to theater school. And for a long way, that's how I made for a long time, that's how I made my way in the city here. And as an actor.
The legitimate theater.
Legit theater, yeah.
The legitimate theater.
Yeah. Classically trained. I'm a classically trained actor. But every theater is haunted. And I've investigated a lot of theaters. Ed Sullivan Theater or the Letterman Show, investigated that. So there are a lot of places in New York that I know of that are notoriously haunted, and they just kind of keep it on the down low for a lot of reasons. One, you just don't have time. There's not a lot of time, and I describe living in New York to my friends who don't or have never visited. I say you stay in your apartment to the very last second, and then you leave and you rush to the subway or rush to a cab, or you rush to wherever you're going, and you stay there to the very last second, because there's so many people in New York, and it's a drag, it's a hassle to try and get around. Places in New York also, if they put out that they're haunted, get just bombarded with requests to investigate, especially now with the shows. The place I mentioned just a few moments ago, the Merchant's House, they were on, I think, the first season of Ghost Hunters. And after the episode aired, they said their phone
just right off the hook.
Never stopped. They said they didn't even have to hang up. They were just hitting that little hang up thing on the phone and somebody would be on the other line, because everybody wanted to investigate. Everybody wanted to see the ghost. And it was so much so that they decided, we're going to stop. It's too much. It's too much. It's taking a toll on the house.
Right. Sure.
And, I sent a letter, and it got in the right hands on the right day. That person was in the right mood and contacted me. And so we've had a relationship since. But New York, you've got a lot of places that you would think would be haunted. You got a lot of places that people think are haunted. And as far as like private residences are impossible to do because New York is so noisy. And
I wondered if literally the hustle and bustle was an issue with investigation.
You can't do EVP work in New York City. When I'm at the Merchant's House Museum and I'm recording, there's a bar across the street, and you hear people yelling all the time. Hey, what are you doing? And
I'm
investigators
here.
Yeah. Julian, I love you. Right. So if we've got paranormal investigators listening, I'm sure we do. You guys know that when you listen to your EVP, you're probably listening like a week later. So you don't remember all the people yelling on the street. So you have to call that out. And sometimes you miss it and you hear Julia and you go, oh, somebody's talking to Julia at the Merchant's House. So it's difficult to have a controlled environment in New York City.
It just seems like they're like, the first building that came to mind when I was sort of like trying to come up with so clever things to talk about. I was like, well, and I'm not, all that well versed in New York, but I said, I wonder what would be like a haunted building. What can I think of that would be a haunted place in New York? Of course, museums with all the artifacts and things like that. And then I was like, well, what about the Dakota? And I know you're a Beatles fan. So,
big Beatles fan. And I went to I guess it's the first anniversary of John's murder when I was in high school and came in, skipped school. And came in, and then on his birthday, and Elton John and Yoko Ono sent down chocolate cake to everybody that was on the sidewalk, which was cool.
You ate Elton John's cake?
I didn't get a piece of the cake, but they sent it down. But the Dakota, yes, I have actually a story about the Dakota. A friend of mine, Larry Hewitt, he'll be excited I said his name, used to, when he was a little boy, used to deliver newspapers to all the apartments in the Dakota.
Wow.
And saw a man a number of times as he was delivering newspapers. He would see a man down the hall, and he would, didn't think it was a ghost. He thought it was a resident of the Dakota, and he would see the man make a left at the end of the hall, and if Larry made a right and was delivering the newspapers, would see the same man walking down the hall in front of him again. So yeah, Larry saw that man a number of times, and people have reported to have seen John Lennon, of course, out in front of the Dakota because something tragic and horrible happened there. I don't know why John Lennon would visit the place where he was shot if he could choose to visit any place that he ever went to in his life, or if it was some kind of place memory or residual type of thing people were experiencing. But there's so many people walking down 72nd Street. You go down there right now, there's 1,000 people that have walked by the Dakota as we've been talking. So,
and I'm sure there's even more than 1,000 people that have had something untoward within 50 feet of the Dakota happen since it's been built. I mean, we know John Lennon because he was incredibly famous.
Right.
Actually, I have a connection to the Dakota.
Yeah.
Kind of strange. If you're next time you're out by the Imagine Circle and they have those benches, you'll see a bench that is dedicated to Anthony Digati, which is my cousin up in Buffalo. He was Yoko's butler.
Oh, wow.
Many
oh,
years.
My God. I bet you he's got just great stories.
Well, unfortunately, he left us in 1995, but she put a beautiful bench and a lovely memory to him. And it is just so kind of wild. Like, here I am in this incredibly cosmopolitan place and celebrating an incredibly famous person. And I turn around and there's a Digati.
You know, one of my closest friends is named Digati.
Get out.
Stephen Digati. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I can tell you this. We're related.
Okay.
I know that for sure. I don't know exactly how, but we are related. There is only one family. We're all from Montemaggiore, Belsito, Sicily. So
wow.
That's where my dad's family's from. My mom's family's from Portugal, and I'm a hell of a cook. Unfortunately, I eat everything I cook, which is part of my problem. You know, it's that whole the merchant house is in the East Village. Yes.
Yeah, it's 29 East 4th Street.
So, what is there a legend associated with it, or
okay? I'm so psyched we're talking about the Merchant's House, and for a couple of reasons. The Merchant's House is built in 1832. The Treadwell family, Mr. Seabury Treadwell and his wife Eliza, moved in 1835. They were a wealthy family living in New York. He sold, they call the Merchant's House. He sold all the metal to the ships that were sailing into the New York ports. So if they needed any kind of repairs, they needed any kind of locks or anything metal, he would sell that to them. So he made a buttload of money and bought this beautiful house. It's 6 stories. It's a row house, beautiful, for $18,000 in 1835, which was an enormous amount of money back then. And if you do the what that would be today, I think it's like $1 billion. But
so he was Bill Gates, stupid rich.
Yeah, he was crazy rich. And Gertrude Treadwell, he had 7 children. Gertrude Treadwell was born in 1840. She's the only family member that was born in the house. And she lived there till she was 93 years old. She died. The romantic story is she died in the bed she was born in. Wow. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but the bed she was born in was definitely in the house because it's still there. Everything in the house is original to the house.
Oh, that's so rare. How cool.
After she passed away, they locked the doors and they were going to knock it down. And a distant cousin, George Chapman, I believe his name was, he bought the house to preserve it, and they made it a museum of 19th century living. And so everything in the house, when you walk in, you know, the coat rack inside the door is the coat rack that they put their coats on. That's and fantastic. The dining room table in the rear parlor is where they had their formal meals, and the plates that are on the table are the place they often. You go up to the bedrooms, and the beds are the beds they slept in. The sheets are the sheets that they slept on. Everything is original to the house. It's the way it is.
That's amazing. That's really a gem.
Yeah.
Because usually everything's either recreated or, you know, they've got a little bit, but to have everything be authentic is
yeah. I mean, there are some things in the house that aren't original to the house, but they're from the period and they're from the family, but from another house. Somebody said, I'm a Treadwell and we had this in our house growing up. Can we put it here? And, they'll put it there, but there's always a placard saying not original to the house,
Right.
not part of the collection. Doing air quotes for the people that are listening, which I wish somebody was here to punch me in the face. I hate when people do air quotes. But so when they were refabbing this house from 1933 to 1936, putting in electricity, putting in the plumbing, so visitors can come and spend time, the workers were having experiences and they were seeing people. And they started writing them down. So they have a diary at the merchant's house of people's experiences from the 1940s, and they still do it now. So you can go back and cross-reference and say, hey, you know what? This worker who was putting in the plumbing saw a woman with a brown dress and holding a cup of tea walk down the stairs and walk into the kitchen, and some lady from 2007 has the exact same experience.
That's an amazing amount of corroboration right there. And that sends to your theory, the only paranormal device used was a notebook.
Harry Price, pencil and a notebook. So it's got this great reputation, and people that worked there were having experiences, and they were afraid. They would see things or see people, or walk into a room and the windows are open, and shut them, put the shutters on, leave, and then hear the shutters open up again, go back in, and the shutters are open on purpose, and things are deliberate. So I believe it's a parapsychology calls it an apparitional haunting. On TV, you'll hear it called a intelligent haunting. But it's the consciousness of somebody who has survived bodily death, and they're passing along information any way they can. And if it's moving, just letting them know that they're here. Or now when I bring mediums in, the first time I brought a medium in, he said, whoa, 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 whoa. Everybody wants to say something because now they got somebody that can hear and hear them. And a lot of the things he would come up with, people were like, there's no way anyone should know that. There's no way he knows that, unless he's performing some kind of psychometry where he's getting the history of the home just by touching it. Like people touch an object and they get the history of that object. What's a house? House is a giant object. And so, I'm wondering if that's psychometry. And Richard Chola. Richard would say, I don't know if it is. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. I'm telling you what I'm hearing. And so the Merchant's House is it's a time capsule, and they're very open to the whole haunting idea. They promote it. They make because it's such a small museum, they're really reliant on generating money. And they really play up the haunting stuff on Halloween, and they make a third of their income, in
October,
the week before Halloween.
Oh, yeah. So, in addition to being an extreme history nerd, which I think actually, if I was going to have a paranormal dream team, I think history nerds are important, because researching the background, deed tracing, all kinds of things like that can give you all sorts of information. And when I looked real quick, I did look up the Merchant House, and I was kind of looking at the story. I'm also a literature nerd. And before I have to confess, I read the blurb, but I was thinking of apparently Washington Square by Henry James, allegedly based on is it Gertrude?
Based on Gertrude. Yeah. Gertrude was her father, Seabury, was a very very staunch Episcopalian, and Gertrude fell in love with a doctor. Every dad's dream, right? But he was Catholic, and Seabury said, "It's not going to happen." And so Gertrude was like, "Well, fine, I'm never going to get married," and she stayed in the house. Yeah,
she showed him.
Yeah, and the first paranormal experience recorded at the Merchant's House was a few weeks after she passed. I could tell you another cool connection with the Merchant's House, but a few weeks after she passed, some boys were playing ball out by her stoop out in front of her house, and an older woman whipped open the door and chased the boys away because they were disturbing her, and then slammed the door. People that saw that said, well, that was Gertrude. 100% that was Gertrude. So she came out and chased the boys away. And that's the first paranormal experience recorded at the merchant's house.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Well, sometimes they just need to settle down, you know. Yeah. Now, have you ever been scared on an investigation? I know we kind of goofed on the folks that you see on TV that are investigating. Have you ever had I mean, there's two kinds of, everybody can be startled. It's very easy to be startled. I can do that if the cat knocks something over in the other room.
Exactly.
But I don't mean startled, because we can all do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, have you ever felt, because I always wonder if there is any need for actual physical fear. Because I see sometimes I see clips about people getting scratched. Some people describe there's an Estes method clip where someone is having their head turned, and so the physical. Are you in physical danger in a haunted place?
There are lots of people that will say yes, and that's a hard question to. The short answer for me, in my opinion, is no. I've been on investigations where, and I'm not a psychic, I'm not a medium, I'm just like everybody else who, when you're in a weird situation, you can kind of feel it. Walking around New York City, you go, you know what, I don't get a good feeling hanging out on this corner. I'm gonna go to another place. I was on an investigation
in New York.
Yeah. I was on an investigation on 29th Street, and we were setting up our cameras, and we were going to leave this factory floor alone and just let cameras run, because they were reporting that when they would come in the next morning, things were all moved around. They didn't know if somebody was breaking in or what. So we just set cameras up, and we're just going to let it be. We went to go get some Chinese food, and I forgot my phone. So I was like, let me go get my phone now, and I'll be right back down. And when I got up there and I was walking over, my phone, of course, was all the way in the back corner where we had all our stuff. And as I'm walking through this factory, I just got the weirdest feeling that something bad was going to happen. I don't know if it was going to happen to me, but I was just like, you know what? It's going to happen right now. It's going to happen right now. And I text the guys downstairs saying, look, I'm going to be a little bit. Nothing happened, but I had that feeling like something was, and I got scared, because the anticipation of something happened is what's freaking me out. What was freaking me out.
There's a point, my own imagination, we all do that to ourselves, sure.
And I was scaring myself, exactly. But I've been startled a number of times on investigations. But you do run the risk of falling over things, especially if you have the lights out or you're running away and
the lights out and you're running away, you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
Dead panic does that to you.
I have been touched on an investigation. I've been poked in my chest just once, and I don't believe that if you were filming me, you would have seen my clothes look like somebody was an indentation of a finger. I don't think that happened. I think a spirit was there and wanted to give me the perception of being poked. And he has to do that through PK, through psychokinesis, mind over matter, because that's all they have.
Right.
And they don't have the tools to touch you anymore. So when people get the scratches or people get poked, I don't necessarily, somehow all those scratches are on people's lower backs, and which is really easy to scratch yourself on a lower back or on your shoulders. And I caught a girl on an investigation scratching her arm. And I told one of my buddies, I said, this girl's going to tell us she got scratched in like 30 seconds. And then she screams and she's scratched.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And I'm not a medium person. I mean, I've had definite ideas and influences, and sometimes I've even come up with some stuff that I have no idea. It almost seems like I'm blurting out something and I don't even know where it comes from. But I wouldn't say that I was more of an extra large, really. But
you're stealing all my lines. I'm a double XL, 3XL. Oh my God.
But the thing is that I think all of us, I think even people that I have met that are practiced and very, very, very true mediums. I've met a couple. They're rare. And they're, like you said, it's amazing when you meet someone like that.
Yep.
And I think that they have all said the same thing to all of us, I think, is that we all have this somewhere between when we're born and when we're an adult. either we get jaded, we start to second guess our third eye or our sixth sense, whatever you want to call it. We get too practical, focus on the practical, and then the rest of it fades away. Because if you know, little kids are really psychic. They really are.
Yeah,
they come up with all kinds of wacky stuff.
This is my theory on how everybody has an ability. It's my cable vision theory. Now, everybody's got at least basic cable, right? Everybody's got basic cable.
We hope.
We hope. Well, you know,
some days,
10 years ago, everybody had basic cable because you had to have basic cable. We weren't streaming anything back then.
No, I meant in your metaphorical sense. I met some people who are definitely still on, UHF. Okay.
and some people have HBO. Some people have Showtime. Some people have Skinamax, whatever. And then, some people have, back in the day, we didn't have cable internet. The rich people had that. And then that was affordable. And everybody has it. Now people get the sports packages. So when I'm doing my lectures, I go, raise your hand if you've got at least basic cable. Raise your hand. And when you get down to, again, this is dated now. But when you get down to, do you have all the premium channels? You've got your internet connected to it. You've got your phone connected to it. You've got everything, the whole package. How many people have that? And one or two people will have that. I go, that's a medium. Everybody's got at least basic, abilities. And some people have the whole package. Some people have everything. And every once in a while, HBO does a free weekend, right? That's all exciting. That's when somebody who doesn't have the premium ability has an experience. It's
I'm
just
more like the free trial, but I get it.
yeah. But it's just, the conditions are right, and somebody has an experience they never had before, and they're never going to have again. But they're part of an exclusive club that has that experience.
Yep. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
And I think we're all born with the full cable selection. And one of the things I think happens, like I said, is the channels drop as we get older, because, either like when, and this is no way, don't write me letters about parenting. When you're telling kids that make believe doesn't exist, when you're really like forcing the practical, and I'm not saying you should let your kids be complete little insane people that don't understand the real world. Of course you should, do all that good stuff. But there's a level of imagination I think the real world beats out of us. And I think that somehow people who have retained the full cable package throughout adulthood have found a way to hold on to that while still navigating life in a mostly normal way.
Well, like Richard Scholler, who I've become dear friends with Richard, and I love him dearly. He was 33 years old when he realized his ability. And he says, looking back, I don't remember any kind of instances where I went, how did I know that? Or who was that talking? It happened. He came home from work, and, he was a mortician. So he's been dealing with dead people his entire life. But he came home from
they don't complain
from work, and
the
his
customers
grandparents
that don't complain.
yeah, exactly. I thought about doing it at one point. But he came home and his grandparents were in his house. And they had passed many years before this. And he had a whole conversation with him and called up who's now his husband, called him up and said, look, you need to come over here. And his grandparents were still there while he was on the phone, laughing and enjoying him,
And that's beautiful. That's not frightening. That's not paranormal, but I mean, it's beautiful. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
So
he's an amazing guy.
Maybe if his buddy Dan puts in a word, he could come on and talk to us about that.
I certainly will. He's very open to sharing his abilities, and you'll fall in love with him. He's the sweetest, nicest guy.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what's next for Dan?
What's next for me? Well, immediately I get up at 3:30 in the morning, so I'm going to have to hit the hay pretty soon. But I'm going to continue investigating the Merchant's House. If everybody can go to the Merchant's House website, and if you're I don't want to ask for donations, but they're in a huge legal battle right now. They're attempting, these rich people are attempting to put a hotel up right next to the Merchant's House, and the vibration of the construction would destroy the Merchant's House, would destroy everything in it, and the moldings that are all hand carved out of, plaster, they would just crumble. They would crumble.
And it's amazing it's survived as much as it has, because we all know that New York's been through a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
and it for sure wouldn't survive this. So support them any way you can.
What's the web address? And I'll put a link.
I think it's merchantshouse.org.
Excellent.
I don't think it's The Merchant's House, but if you type in themerchantshouse.org, a link will pop up. And I'll continue investigating that, and come on their tours if you're in New York City or somewhere close by. And Rocky, come to New York City, and you and I will do an investigation. Come on an investigation.
I would love it.
You know, it would be cool if we could record a podcast at the Merchant's House. I'm
down.
But
this you could write me letters about, people.
yeah. But I'll continue my, I'm the only investigator they let in the place. So I'll continue my relationship with them. Continue on the show, people that watch and enjoy the show, Paranormal Caught on Camera. It's funny. A lot of people who don't like the show always watch it, because I get hate mail going, "You're an idiot. You don't know what the hell you're talking about." Yeah. And I go, well, keep watching. My check clears. So
exactly.
Yeah. So and I'll keep commenting on these videos as long as they allow me.
Oh, fantastic! You do a great job. It's a great show, because I think there's such a diversity amongst all of the commentators. Everybody's got different specialties, different personalities, different backgrounds, and different opinions. So it always makes it, I think, very interesting.
Yeah.
In that respect.
And, there's some, they're really all really cool people. I've only met a few of them in person. Brian Cano lives on Staten Island. So, I see him not often, but when we were shooting in the studio, we would run into each other. We would shoot on the same days. And he's become a friend, good guy, Brian Cano. And it has brought attention to this. It's brought attention of things that I never really paid attention to, like ufology, cryptozoology. I had to bone up on this so I could comment on the videos, and just fascinating stuff. So I've gotten to meet some really, really cool people who, I always refer to them as the crazy Bigfoot people. But, and I'm sure they thought, hey, that crazy ghost guy, Dan Sturges. But these people are all passionate about their field. They're all really smart and well-versed in their field. And I learn from these people whenever I spend time with them. I learn something. I come away with something. And hopefully that's what everybody that enjoys the show will see, the do's and the don'ts, even on an investigation, or get something out of it that maybe they weren't so sure about, or they're having experiences and they think they might be the only one. And they turn the show on and they go, "Oh, that person's having an experience with the same as me." So I think it touches a lot of bases, and I don't want to say it's a valuable show to have out there. It's a goofy paranormal clip show, but
it's curious. I think the whole and this is sort of like my last kind of question for you. Is and I don't have any answers. I'll be the first one to tell you that I think that and I think anybody, and I like to think I'm a good amateur investigator. I think when you come out with more questions than answers, you're doing something right.
Exactly.
You go through what, and I know there's lots of debates about different dogmas as far as afterlife and souls and things like that. And what if we're always looking for answers? What if they're not trying to teach us about afterlife? What if they're trying to teach us about how time works?
Yeah.
And I think about, is it all Edgar Cayce, or is some of it Albert Einstein?
Right.
And that's my quest.
It might be, Albert Einstein would love Paranormal Caught on Camera. He was a big believer in the. Well, I don't know if they called it paranormal back then or parapsychology, but he was into this stuff.
He was
spooky actions at a distance, and he was questioning in his way, in his genius way.
Incredible.
Are we all connected, and do you need a body to be connected to something?
And is time constant? Well, I think we can probably wrap with: energy cannot be created nor destroyed.
It just transfers. It just
exactly.
Carl Sagan had a great answer one time, and I've stolen it, and I use it all the time when I'm at the merchant's house or speaking about it. And people come up and ask me all the time, is the merchant's house haunted? And I say, it'd be amazing if it was, but it'd be amazing if it wasn't, So
I think that says it all.
Yeah. Yep.
Dan, I want to thank you so much for having this chat with me.
Oh my God, Rocky, you're like my new best friend. We have so much in common.
We do.
And,
it's been a blast.
And
we got to do it again.
I want to come see your band.
Absolutely. I will get you that information. And we got to do an investigation in New York. I got to see this house. I'm a history nerd. It's going to be,
Oh my God, you'll freak out. It's a pretty remarkable place, and that is a no-brainer. Come to New York. Just give me a little heads up.
We'll do.
And we'll set it up. We'll have a blast.
And everybody, go ahead and click the links in the description, and you'll get some of the information that we discussed. Make sure you tune into Paranormal Caught on Camera. And thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Rocky. Had a great time. Great time.
Thank you for listening to Macabre World. You can find us on the web at www.darkerartsstudio.com.